Let's get one thing straight. I died and woke up in a novel. Now I'm just tired. All I want to do is chill. So I picked one of my hundreds of properties, a penthouse suite with a skyline view, and threw an ad up online to rent out the spare room. And then I found her, a girl who looked like she'd fallen out of a fairy tale. She had amnesia and was flat broke, so broke her pockets had nothing but lint. She asked me, voice trembling, if she could pay the rent monthly. I looked at her, and only one thought crossed my mind. This wasn't a tenant. This was the future lady of the house. My name is Ethan Vance, and I'm a transmigrator. In my last life, I spent 30 years on the corporate hamster wheel. Ivy League degree, straight into the brutal grind at a Silicon Valley tech giant. I was on my way to a physical. Ironic, I know, when I tried to save a kid who ran a red light and got taken out by a runaway truck. Well, at least I don't have to worry about checkups anymore. I woke up inside a power fantasy web novel I'd read, inhabiting the body of a side character who shared my name. This guy had inherited an obscene fortune, but got dumped by his Ice Queen CEO fiancé for being a degenerate playboy and drank himself into an early grave. The moment I officially inherited the money, I stared at the string of zeros that wouldn't fit on my phone screen and the global portfolio of properties and companies. And in that moment, I achieved enlightenment. Why would I ever hustle again? I'm tired. Let the world burn. This life, I have only one goal, to do absolutely nothing. To achieve this noble ambition, the first thing I did was dismantle the business empire. I broke it up into pieces and handed them over to a dozen top-tier executives I poached from around the globe. I gave them only 3 rules. 1, don't bother me. 2, if a problem comes up, solve it yourself. If you can't, you're fired. 3, make sure my dividends hit my account every month. Just like that, the mysterious phantom capital appeared on the world stage, and I became an unemployed bum. I picked a sprawling flat I owned in the most expensive skyscraper in downtown Manhattan and told everyone I was just renting. My days were simple. Hit the gym, experiment with new recipes, brew my own craft beer, and occasionally stand before my 360-degree floor-to-ceiling windows, looking down at the gridlock traffic of the financial district, enjoying the simple, unpretentious pleasure of it all. It was bliss. Today I just finished a workout, sweat glistening on my 8-pack. I was about to mix myself a cucumber lemon seltzer when my phone rang. Unknown number. I swiped to answer, and a timid, sweet female voice came through the speaker. Hello. Are you the one who posted the roommate ad online? It took me a second to remember. To make my new life of leisure feel a bit more authentic, more grounded, I'd listed my spare bedroom on a rental site a couple of days ago. As for the rent, I'd set a symbolic price of $1,500 a month. For context, the monthly maintenance fees on this place alone are in the 5-figure range. That's me, I said, wiping the sweat from my brow as I walked to the freezer for some ice. Well, I saw the pictures. The apartment is beautiful. I was just wondering, could you possibly go any lower? Her voice got smaller and smaller, laced with an embarrassment she couldn't quite hide. I raised an eyebrow. $1,500 in this neighborhood wouldn't even get you a walk-in closet. And this girl wanted to haggle. I was intrigued. I leaned against the kitchen island, a lazy drawl in my voice. How much lower are we talking? 8,000. Would that be okay? She sounded like she'd summoned every ounce of her courage. That's all I have right now. I can pay for the first month, and as soon as I find a job, I'll pay you back the difference, I promise. I could almost picture her on the other end, a recent grad, clutching her phone, palms sweating with anxiety. Interesting. Sure, I agreed instantly. But on one condition. Anything. Her voice immediately lit up with surprised joy. I'm lazy. I hate chores. You move in, you handle all the cleaning, and we'll call it $1,000 a month. The truth was I had a high-end cleaning service come in weekly. I was just messing with her. Really? That's amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. She was so excited she was tripping over her words. Can I come see the apartment now? To send you the address. Come on over. After hanging up, I gazed out the window, a smirk playing on my lips. Might as well add a little fun to my stagnant life. Half an hour later, the doorbell rang. I shuffled over in my slides and opened the door. The sight of the person standing outside made my breath catch in my throat. What a face! Clean, pure, and so beautiful it was unreal. Her skin was a cool, pale white that seemed to glow under the hallway lights. Her eyes, like a fawn's, were clear and filled with a touch of bewildered anxiety. She wore a simple sundress that had been washed one too many times and a pair of canvas sneakers, clutching a worn-out tote bag to her chest like a frightened forest creature. When she saw me, she seemed to freeze too. Her face flushed crimson, her eyes darting from my face down to the workout tank I hadn't bothered to change out of and the abs and villine it left exposed. Her face turned an even deeper shade of red, like a ripe peach. Hello, I'm Claire Summers, she stammered, looking down, her voice barely a whisper. My throat felt a little dry. Since I got here, I'd seen my fair share of beautiful women, but none of them had an effect like this, where just by standing there, she made the blood start to thrum in my veins. Ethan Vance, I said, stepping aside. My voice was a little rougher than usual. Come on in. She stepped into the foyer, and the moment she saw the living room, her stunning eyes went wide with shock. This is the apartment for rent. Yep, I said, closing the door and grabbing a new pair of slippers from the shoe cabinet for her. A little over 2,000 square feet. Kind of small, but I hope you don't mind. She didn't answer, just stared at the massive wall of windows and the glittering city skyline beyond, speechless for a long moment. I watched her, enjoying the show. This was exactly the effect I wanted. I wanted her to know that her new landlord, lazy as he was, had impeccable taste. After a while, she finally snapped out of it, nervously clutching the strap of her tote bag. Mr. Vance, this place, renting it to me for $1,000, isn't that a little? You said you'd handle the chores, right? I cut her off, walking over to the living room sofa and patting the cushion next to me. Seat, let's talk. She hesitated for a moment before perching cautiously on the edge of a lone armchair, her back ramrod straight. I saw your profile, I said, holding up my phone. Claire Summers, 22, new to the city? She nodded, her gaze evasive. You got her ID? I need to make a copy for the lease. At the mention of that, her head drooped even lower. I lost my ID. And my luggage. Lost them. I feigned surprise. The truth was, while she was on her way over, my chief assistant and head of security, Marcus, had already sent me her complete file. Claire Summers, the sole heiress to the powerhouse Summers family on the East Coast. Their family fortune was maybe 1% of what my Phantom capital was worth, but they were still top-tier old money. 3 days ago, she was in an accidental car crash. When she woke up, her memory was gone. The person who orchestrated the crash was her cousin, who was after the family inheritance. She had followed a faint, blurry memory all the way to New York City with only $2,000 in cash to her name. And I was the first kind stranger she'd met in this unfamiliar city. Of course, all of this was a secret between me and the omniscient narrator in my head. Claire herself, her family that was frantically searching for her, and that cousin who thought his plan was foolproof, were all completely in the dark. This feeling of being in total control, of quietly watching everyone else's little dramas unfold. This was the ultimate meaning of chilling. Well, that's a problem, I said, frowning thoughtfully. Her face instantly paled, her hands twisting together in her lap. Mr. Vance, I'm not a liar. I'll get it replaced as soon as I can. Please, just let me stay for a few days. I can write you an IOU. Seeing her on the verge of tears brought a deep sense of satisfaction to my twisted little heart. All right, I said, waving a hand dismissively and softening my tone. You don't look like a bad person. Tell you what, you can stay for now. As for the ID, I'll ask a friend of mine to see what they can do. She shot her head up, her eyes glistening with a mixture of disbelief and overwhelming gratitude. Really? Thank you. Mr. Vance, you're such a good person. I love it when people call me a good person. It makes me feel like I'm still a part of the human race. And stop with the Mr. Vance. It's weird, I said, standing up and heading toward the guest room. Just call me Ethan. This is your room. See if you need anything. I pushed open the door to the spare bedroom. The room was huge, with its own en-suite bathroom, a walk-in closet, and another floor-to-ceiling window. The furniture inside was all stuff I'd picked out myself. Minimalist, but exuding top-shelf quality. Claire followed behind me, peeking her head in, and then she froze completely. This is the room for $1,000 a month. Yep, I said, leaning against the door frame and enjoying her gobsmacked expression. What, you don't like it? No, 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 she said, waving her hands frantically. It's perfect. It's 100 times better than I ever could have imagined. It was like she'd run out of adjectives, her little face flushed with excitement. Glad you like it, I said, straightening up. We'll sign the lease later. Get settled in. You hungry? I'll make dinner. Oh, no, no, I'll do it, she said, immediately remembering her chore duties. What would you like to eat? I can cook anything. I glanced at her hands, which were fairer and more delicate than spring onions, and let out a soft chuckle. And what exactly can you cook? I can make instant ramen. And scrambled eggs with tomatoes, she said, puffing out her chest with a look of pride. I couldn't help it. I laughed out loud. All right, dinner's on me tonight. Starting tomorrow, the kitchen's all yours. I turned and walked toward the kitchen without looking back at her. If I kept looking, I was afraid I wouldn't be able to stop myself from devouring this innocent little rabbit right then and there. My body had a damn primal urge for her. The feeling was new and very, very dangerous. I don't have many hobbies. Besides working out, my main thing is food. In my last life, I worked like a dog, lived on takeout, and completely wrecked my stomach. This life, with all the money and time in the world, I was determined to make up for it. I wouldn't say I've mastered every regional American cuisine, but I've dabbled in most of them. I opened my custom-built refrigerator, which cost more than a mid-sized sedan, and surveyed the contents. It was packed with everything from Japanese A5 Wagyu to fresh Maine lobster. I thought for a moment and picked out a few simpler ingredients. No need to go over the top for a first meal here. Don't want to scare her off. I decided on pan-seared sea bass, some garlic butter scallops, a stir-fry of black pepper steak bites with king oyster mushrooms, and a rich, slow-simmered chicken and wild mushroom soup. As I worked in the open-plan kitchen, Claire stood a short distance away, looking curious but too timid to come closer. She had probably never seen a man cook before, let alone one who made it look so effortless. My knife skills were learned from a Michelin-star chef. The rhythmic chop of the vegetables was a performance in itself. The way I handled the pan was pure, fluid motion. Half an hour later, 4 dishes and a soup were on the dining table. The aroma instantly filled the entire space. Claire's eyes were wide as she watched, her little nose twitching as she took in the scent. I saw her swallow. Come on, time to eat, I said, taking off my apron and ladling a bowl of soup for her. She sat down cautiously, holding the bowl with both hands. She blew on it gently, then took a small, tentative sip. In the next second, her eyes lit up like stars turning on in the night sky. This is so good. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with awe and delight. If you like it, have some more. I felt a wave of pure satisfaction. Conquering a beautiful woman with my cooking skills was way more gratifying than signing some multi-billion-dollar deal. Claire ate with gusto that night. She didn't say much, but her every emotion was written on her face. When she tasted something delicious, her eyes would curve into little crescents. When she drank the savory soup, she would close her eyes in contentment. I barely ate. I was full just watching her. She was like a little hamster that had been starving for days, her cheeks puffed out with food. It was adorable. After dinner, she insisted on washing the dishes, but I stopped her. First night, my treat, I said, pointing to the dishwasher. Besides, we have this. She stared at the fully automatic machine with another look of someone who had never seen modern technology before. I was seriously starting to wonder if, before she lost her memory, she'd been living in some remote, off-the-grid cabin in the mountains. Later that night, I got out of the shower, a pair of loose pajama pants hanging low on my hips, and was toweling my hair dry with my upper body bare. The moment I stepped out of the bathroom, I ran right into Claire, who was just coming out of her room. She was holding a change of clothes, probably getting ready for her own shower. Our eyes met. The air froze. Her gaze, against her will, fell to the water droplets trickling down my chest and abs. My physique was the type that looked lean in clothes but was ripped underneath. Years of disciplined training had sculpted every muscle to be perfectly defined, exuding a sense of power. I could clearly see the blush creep up her neck and flood her face, visible even in the dim hallway light. She let out a small gasp, spun around, and faced the wall, dropping her clothes all over the floor. Sorry. I didn't mean to. I found her flustered state amusing. It's fine, I said, walking over. I leaned in close, deliberately letting my warm breath ghost over her ear as I bent down to help her pick up her clothes. It's not like you haven't seen it before. Her body went rigid, and I could feel the heat radiating off her. I tucked the clothes back in her arms and whispered in her ear, "Go ahead. You have my permission." With that, I straightened up, still drying my hair, and strolled back to my room. I left her standing there, clutching her clothes, completely petrified. Back in my room, I leaned against the door listening, hearing no movement from the hallway for a long time. I couldn't help but let out a low chuckle. Teasing her was way too much fun, but as the laughter faded, my expression sobered. That familiar heat began to build inside me again. Damn it, the original owner of this body was an out-of-control womanizer. And even though my soul was different, the body's instincts remained, especially when it came to Claire. She was like a giant human-shaped magnet. The moment she got close, the hormones in my system went into a frenzy. I went into my bathroom and turned on the cold water, letting it cascade over my head. The icy stream shocked me back to my senses. I looked at myself in the mirror, my eyes dark and unreadable. Ethan, you have to control yourself. You finally found yourself a perfect little bunny. Don't go scaring her off on the first night. You have to take it slow. Boil the frog. Let her jump into your pot willingly. That is the true art of chilling. The next morning, I was woken up by a delicious smell. It wasn't the expensive incense I usually used, but the aroma of food, carrying the warm, comforting scent of a home-cooked meal. I walked out of my room to see Claire in the kitchen, wearing a cartoon print apron I left for her, bustling about. She was clearly not used to this. Frying an egg was a struggle. She was clumsy, and there was spilled egg yolk on the counter. But she was trying so hard. The morning sun streamed through the window, casting a soft, golden halo around her. In that moment, a corner of my heart melted. "Morning," I said, leaning against the kitchen doorway. My voice startled her. Her hand jerked, and the fried egg on her spatula went flying, landing on the floor with a sad splat. "Oh," she stared at the mangled egg on the floor, her face crumpling in frustration and disappointment. "I'm sorry. I ruined it." "It's fine," I said, walking over and taking the spatula from her hand. "I'll do it." No, we agreed I'd do the chores," she protested, trying to grab the spatula back. I simply lifted my arm, and it was out of her reach. I was a good head taller than her. She hopped around me anxiously, like a little kitten with its fur on end. I watched her, thoroughly amused, then took 2 more eggs from the fridge and cracked them into the pan with one hand. "Watch. I'll teach you." I took her hand, placing mine over it, and guided her, showing her how to tilt the pan and how to flip the egg with the spatula. Her hand was small and soft, like a piece of warm jade in my palm. My own palm was burning, and my heart started to beat erratically. Her attention was completely focused on the eggs in the pan. She didn't notice how tense my body had become. When a perfect sunny-side-up egg slid onto the plate, she cheered. I did it. She turned her head, her bright, shining eyes looking at me, her face alight with pure joy. We were standing so close I could see the fine, downy hair on her cheeks. She had a faint, milky scent that was incredibly pleasant. My Adam's apple bobbed. Just as I was about to give in, to lean down and kiss her, the doorbell rang, shattering the moment. I snapped back to reality, cursing under my breath as I let go of her hand. "I'll get it." I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. It was Marcus. I opened the door. Marcus stood there in a sharp black suit and sunglasses, his face an emotionless mask. He was holding a silver briefcase. "Boss," he said with a slight bow. "Come in." Marcus followed me into the living room, his eyes fixed straight ahead. Claire came out of the kitchen holding 2 plates of fried eggs. She froze when she saw Marcus's getup. "Who's this?" she whispered to me. "A friend of mine, Marcus Kane," I said, making it up on the spot. "He's a LARPer, live-action role-playing." "Oh," Claire nodded, not quite getting it, then offered Marcus a friendly smile. "Hello, Mr. Kane. Would you like some breakfast?" A crack appeared in Marcus's perpetually stoic expression. He shook his head stiffly. "No. Thank you, Ms. Summers." "He knows my name?" A flicker of confusion crossed Claire's mind, but I cut her off. Marcus, the report, I said, sitting down at the table and grabbing a piece of toast. Marcus immediately opened the briefcase, pulled out a tablet, and handed it to me. Boss, the diamond mine in Africa has ceased production due to local tribal conflicts. The tribal leader we're backing is about to be overthrown. He's asking if we can send another shipment of aid. I chewed on my toast, scrolling through the bloody photos from the scene on the tablet without batting an eye. Tell him if he wants the aid, his tribe needs to take control of the surrounding hills as well. We'll double the price. Understood. Marcus swiped the screen. Also, those hedge funds on Wall Street seem to have sniffed something out. They've been shorting several of our subsidiary companies. Should I have our people step in and teach them a lesson? No need, I said, taking a sip of milk. Let them play. Wait until they've maxed out their leverage, then we'll wipe them out in one go. I've been thinking about acquiring an airline recently, and I could use some pocket money. Got it. Anything else? If not, get out. Don't interrupt my breakfast. Marcus immediately closed the briefcase, bowed respectfully, and said, Enjoy your meal, boss. Goodbye, Ms. Summers. Then he turned and left without a moment's hesitation. Throughout the entire exchange, Claire sat across from me, her mouth slightly agape, having forgotten all about her food. After Marcus left, she finally came to her senses and looked at me with pure admiration. Ethan, this game you guys play. It's so realistic. I nearly choked on my milk. Game. I swallowed, my expression unchanged. It's all right. Just a little something to pass the time. That diamond mine and Wall Street. Are those maps in the game? She asked curiously. Yeah, something like that, I said, spinning a web of lies with a perfectly straight face. You're amazing, she exclaimed, genuinely impressed. It sounds so complicated, but you're in complete command. And that Mr. Kane is your teammate? He looks so cool. Him. I smiled. He's my #1 psychic. So, can I join your game sometime? She asked, her eyes full of anticipation. Maybe when you can fry a perfect sunny-side-up egg. I tapped her plate, where the burnt, misshapen egg she'd made earlier sat in disgrace. She stuck out her tongue and looked down, embarrassed. Seeing how cute she was put me in a fantastic mood. This feeling of casually discussing world-altering events as a little game, all while a beautiful woman looks at you with stars in her eyes. It was so damn satisfying. This was the true essence of chilling. Without an ID, Claire was basically trapped. Forget finding a job. She couldn't even take the subway. She was down about it for days, so much so that she lost her appetite. Looking at her sad little face, I decided to stop teasing her. I sent Marcus a text. Fix her ID situation. Make it legal, and make it fast. Less than 10 minutes later, Marcus replied, Done, boss. A temporary ID has been entered into the national system. The physical card is being expedited and will be delivered tomorrow morning. The power of money. The next day, when I handed Claire a brand new temporary ID card, she was completely stunned. This, so fast. She held the card, turning it over and over as if it were a priceless treasure. My friend works in the right department. I explained, my face a mask of casual indifference. Ethan, you're the best, she said, looking at me with so much emotion her eyes turned red. I don't know how I can ever thank you. Treat me to a good meal, I said, gesturing to the kitchen. Today, I want to see you fry a perfect sunny-side-up egg. She nodded vigorously, as if accepting a military command, and charged into the kitchen. With the ID problem solved, the next step was a job. But with her amnesia, she couldn't remember any skills, and she had no proof of her education. So, I just decided to have her work for me. You could be my personal assistant, I told her as I lounged on the sofa. Help me manage the apartment, research recipes. I'll pay you a salary. How much? She asked cautiously. I thought for a moment. How about $5,000 a month? She was shocked again. That's way too much. I'm just doing chores. It's not, I said coolly. My time is valuable. You're saving me time, and that has value. Besides, I'm a picky eater. If you can make dishes that I like, there will be bonuses. And just like that, Claire became my exclusive personal assistant. Her days consisted of cleaning the apartment, studying the Michelin star cookbooks I gave her, and feeding me. Of course, there were occasional little accidents. For instance, she would accidentally slip while handing me a towel, falling perfectly into my arms, her hands coincidentally landing right on my abs. Or she would come over while I was working out, looking curious, and then innocently poke my biceps, sighing, "Wow, it's so hard." I knew what she was doing. This little rabbit was trying, in her own clumsy way, to flirt with me, and I was enjoying every second of it. Meanwhile, across town at Sterling Industries, the company was facing an unprecedented crisis. In the CEO's office, Victoria Sterling stood, cold as ice, in a black power suit. A line of her top executives stood before her, silent as statues. "So, what you're telling me is that the semiconductor project we've invested billions in has had its core technology completely usurped." Her voice was devoid of warmth, yet it made the temperature in the room plummet. "Why, yes, Ms. Sterling," the head of R&D stammered, wiping sweat from his brow. "The other party, they came out of nowhere. Their technology is at least 2 generations ahead of ours. All of our partners are now in talks with them." "Who are they?" "A company called Phantom Capital. Their background is completely untraceable." Victoria gripped the pen in her hand so tightly her knuckles turned white. She had pulled countless all-nighters for this project, betting the entire future of Sterling Industries on it. Now it was all turning to smoke. "Do whatever it takes," she said, closing her eyes and taking a deep breath. "I want to meet the person in charge of this Phantom Capital." "Ms. Sterling, we've tried," her assistant said, looking troubled. "They're incredibly tight-lipped. All they'll say is that their boss's last name is Vance. Nothing else. Our emails and calls have all gone unanswered." "Vance?" For a fleeting moment, an image of a lazy, carefree smile flashed through Victoria's mind. The man whose engagement she had personally broken off. Ethan Vance. She immediately shook her head, banishing the absurd thought. Impossible. That man was good for nothing but drinking and chasing women. How could he possibly be connected to the mysterious and powerful Phantom Capital? "Keep digging," she commanded, her eyes snapping open, sharp as ever. "I don't care if you have to tear this city apart. Find me this Mr. Vance." Later that afternoon, at a cafe, sat a man who looked strikingly familiar. He was in a simple white t-shirt and jeans, his hair cut short and neat. He was leaning forward, gently wiping a smudge of cream from the corner of the girl's mouth across from him. The girl was smiling, her eyes curving into crescents. She was so pretty it was hard to look away. It was Ethan. What was he doing here? Shouldn't he be at some club, surrounded by women, wasting his life away? And who was that woman with him? She looked so pure. A wave of irritation washed over Victoria. She despised men like Ethan, men with no ambition. She averted her gaze and said coldly to her assistant, "Let's go. Don't let people like that ruin the mood." The assistant glanced in Ethan's direction and muttered, "That Ethan Vance, you just can't seem to get rid of him. But don't worry, Ms. Sterling. He's a nobody now. Even a team lead at our company is more successful than him." Victoria didn't reply, just walked away without a backward glance, the sharp click of her heels echoing on the pavement. Back in the cafe, I felt a cold stare and glanced up. All I saw was the back of a woman in a business suit, looking impeccably severe as she walked away. "What are you looking at?" Claire asked, following my gaze but seeing only passers-by. "Nothing," I said, my focus returning to her. I gently pinched her cheek. "Just you, my little messy eater." She smiled sheepishly, then scooped up a big spoonful of cake and held it to my lips. I opened my mouth and ate. Sweet. But sweeter than the cake was the person feeding it to me. As for that icy woman's back, I didn't give a second thought. Just a nearly bankrupt ex-fiancé. Nowhere near as important as the personal assistant sitting right in front of me. Over the next few days, Victoria Sterling pulled every string she had, trying to get in touch with the elusive Mr. Vance of Phantom Capital. It was all for nothing. The man was like an impenetrable fortress, rendering all her efforts useless. She grew more and more frustrated, and the atmosphere at her company became increasingly tense. One day, after another failed attempt, her assistant couldn't help but complain, "This Mr. Vance is impossible. He's got a bigger ego than anyone I've ever seen. I can't imagine what kind of person he must be." Another executive chimed in. "I heard Phantom Capital is ruthless. A while back, They shorted several old-school Wall Street funds into bankruptcy. They don't play around. Listening to her subordinates, Victoria's sense of powerlessness deepened. A ridiculous thought even crossed her mind. If she hadn't broken off the engagement with Ethan, if she could have used the Vance family's influence, would she be in this mess? No. Stop. She immediately crushed the thought. She was Victoria Sterling. She didn't need to rely on anyone. Just as she was stewing in her frustration, her phone rang. It was the private investigator she'd hired. Ms. Sterling, I've got a lead. We found out that Phantom Capital's top man in the country is named Marcus Kane, nicknamed the Reaper. Used to be the head of a top international mercenary group before he was recruited by Phantom's owner. Marcus Kane, Victoria tensed. Yes, and we've tracked his recent movements. He's been frequently visiting one location. Where? The Apex Tower, #1 building downtown. The Apex, wasn't it the most exclusive luxury residential building in the entire city? Could it be the mysterious Mr. Vance lived there? Victoria's spirits lifted. Find a way. I need to get in there and meet him. At that very moment, in the penthouse apartment of the Apex Tower, #1 building, I was lounging on a chaise on the balcony in a pair of board shorts, soaking up the sun. Claire was sitting on a small stool next to me, diligently painting my toenails. It was her punishment for losing a bet we'd made yesterday. She'd chosen a sparkly pink polish and was applying it with intense concentration, muttering to herself, "Ethan, your feet are so big. Ethan, your toe hair is a little long. You want me to trim it? Ethan, do you like this color? I think it's super cute." I had my sunglasses on, sipping a glass of iced tea, thoroughly enjoying this unique form of torture. I felt like I had reached the pinnacle of existence. Who cares about corporate crises and financial warfare? None of it was as entertaining as watching my little bunny paint my toenails. Just then my phone rang. It was Marcus. I put him on speaker. "Boss, Victoria Sterling from Sterling Industries got in touch with building management. She wants to come up and see you." Victoria Sterling. I took off my sunglasses, a little surprised. That woman worked fast. She says it's a matter of life and death for her company. "Oh," I replied nonchalantly, "and I had security block her. I told them you were currently engaged in a multi-billion-dollar project and couldn't be disturbed." I glanced down at Claire, who was still focused on my toenails, and couldn't help but smile. He wasn't wrong. It was a multi-billion-dollar project. My happiness was priceless. "Good work," I praised him. On the other end, Marcus's voice held a hint of excitement. "Thank you for the compliment, boss. By the way, that airline you had me acquire, the paperwork is all finished. Did you want to rename it or just merge it into Phantom?" "No rush," I said, looking at Claire's adorable, focused face. An idea sparked. "Hey, can you look into something for me? Are there any performance planes in the country that fly around and draw heart shapes in the sky?" The line was silent for 3 seconds. "Boss, are you referring to an aerobatic stunt team?" "Yeah, that's the stuff. Buy one for me." "No, buy like 10 of them. I have a use for them." "Yes, boss." Marcus sounded like he was questioning his own sanity. After I hung up, Claire looked up curiously. "Ethan, are you playing a new game? You're buying planes now." "Yep," I said, wiggling my freshly painted pink toes. "A little game to make you happy." She smiled, not quite understanding, and went back to her important work on my feet. And me? I started to look forward to it. I couldn't wait to see the look on that Ice Queen's face when she found out that the Mr. Vance she was so desperately trying to meet was the same ex-fiancé she so thoroughly despised. It was going to be priceless. Victoria Sterling waited downstairs at the Apex for 2 solid hours. The entire time, security politely but firmly blocked her, repeating that the resident is in an important meeting and cannot be disturbed. She had never been treated this way in her entire life. Staring up at the towering skyscraper, for the first time, she felt truly powerless. Her assistant couldn't stand it. "Ms. Sterling, maybe we should go back? This isn't getting us anywhere. This Mr. Vance is being completely unreasonable." Victoria said nothing, her lips pressed into a thin line. Just as she was about to give up, a black Rolls-Royce Phantom glided silently to a stop beside her. The window rolled down, revealing a cold, chiseled face. It was Marcus Kane. Victoria immediately walked over. Mr. Kane. Marcus took off his sunglasses, his expression unreadable. Ms. Sterling, can I help you? I need to see Mr. Vance, Victoria said, getting straight to the point. The boss is busy, Marcus replied curtly. I can wait. You'd be waiting forever. His voice was flat. The boss said he has no interest in the fate of Sterling Industries. If you want to partner with us, show some sincerity. What kind of sincerity? He didn't say. Marcus put his sunglasses back on, and the window began to rise. Ms. Sterling, please leave. Don't be an eyesore for the boss. With that, the Rolls-Royce disappeared into the underground garage. Victoria stood frozen, her face flushing and paling by turns. Her assistant, standing behind her, was shaking with rage. Victoria stared at the entrance to the garage, her nails digging so deep into her palms they drew blood. What she didn't know was that I was watching the whole scene unfold from my penthouse, through a pair of high-powered binoculars. Tisk, tisk, I said, lowering the binoculars and shaking my head. That woman still acts like the whole world owes her something. What are you looking at? Claire asked, walking over with a plate of freshly cut fruit. Just the view. I pulled her down to sit in my lap and fed her a piece of cantaloupe. She obediently ate it, then curiously picked up the binoculars and looked down. Hey, that lady is really pretty. But why does she look so upset? Because she was asking for a favor and got rejected. Oh, Claire put the binoculars down, a sympathetic look on her face. That's so sad for her. I just smiled and said nothing. Sad. When she found out the truth, it wouldn't be sad. It would be pathetic. The next few days were peaceful. Claire's cooking skills improved by leaps and bounds under my tutelage. She couldn't tackle anything too complex yet, but her simple home-style dishes were becoming quite good. The atmosphere between us grew more and more charged. Her eyes would sparkle whenever she looked at me, filled with an undisguised admiration and dependence. And I, in turn, was getting used to having this soft, fragrant presence by my side. I was addicted to this slow-burn seduction. But there are always clueless people who want to ruin a good thing. One evening, Claire and I were watching a movie when a loud, violent banging erupted from the front door. Open up. I know the little bitch is in there. Get your ass out here, a man's voice yelled, arrogant and sleazy. The color drained from Claire's face. Her body began to tremble uncontrollably. Don't be scared, I said, patting her hand as I got up and walked to the door. Through the peephole, I saw a few thuggish-looking men. The one in the lead had a hooked nose, beady eyes, and a brutish face. I recognized him. Claire's cousin, the one who tried to have her killed. Trevor Summers. He actually found this place. Looks like Marcus's team needs a serious performance review. Who is it? I asked in a deliberately lazy tone. Cut the crap. Open the damn door. Trevor kicked the door impatiently. My front door was bank vault grade. His kick was about as effective as a fly buzzing against it. Oh, I said slowly, not opening it until you tell me who you are. Screw you. I'm Trevor Summers of the Summers family. That little tramp inside, Claire Summers, is my cousin. I'm here to take her home. I glanced back at Claire on the sofa. At the mention of the name, Trevor Summers, her eyes filled with terror and disgust. It seemed that even with amnesia, her body's instincts remembered this scumbag. Your cousin. I chuckled softly. She doesn't go by Summers anymore. Her last name is Vance now. You son of a bitch. Break the damn door down. Trevor had completely lost his patience. The bodyguards behind him started ramming the door. I pulled out my phone and dialed Marcus. You have 3 minutes. Take out the trash in my front door. I hung up and leaned casually against the door, listening to the commotion outside. Claire ran over to me nervously, grabbing my arm. Ethan, are they going to get in? They won't, I said, stroking her hair like I was calming a frightened kitten. Don't worry. I'm here. No sooner had the words left my mouth than the banging outside stopped abruptly. It was replaced by a series of blood-curdling screams. Ack, my hand! Who the hell was that? Help! The screams lasted for less than a minute before they were cut short. The hallway fell into a dead silence. I opened the door. The corridor was empty, save for a few inconspicuous drops of blood on the floor. Trevor and his useless bodyguards had vanished without a trace. I closed the door and turned to meet Claire's eyes, which were wide with a mixture of shock and adoration. Ethan, you. I told you. I said, ruffling her hair and pulling her into a hug. Just a few drunks causing trouble. It's been handled. She was still trembling slightly in my arms. But this time, it wasn't from fear. It was from excitement. She suddenly looked up, and before I could react, she stood on her tiptoes and pressed a quick, light kiss to my lips. Warm, soft, like the brush of a feather. Then she buried her face in my chest and refused to look up. I felt my heart skip a beat. I looked down at her reddened ears, and a wide grin spread across my face. The little rabbit was finally learning to attack. I liked it. After that kiss, the unspoken tension between us had been mostly broken. Claire no longer tried to hide her dependence and affection for me. She would curl up on the sofa next to me like a kitten while I was working, quietly reading a book. She would bring me water and a towel when I was at the gym, then blush as she openly admired my physique. One time, I was on the bench press, and she was spotting me, counting my reps. After the last set, I sat up. Sweat trickled down the lines of my chest, soaking the waistband of my shorts. Here, she said, handing me a towel. I didn't take it. Instead, I grabbed her hand and pressed it flat against my abs. Inspect the results, I said, my voice husky as I caught my breath. Her hand was cool, but my stomach was scorching hot. The contact made her face flush instantly, her fingertips trembling as if they'd been shocked. She tried to pull her hand away, but I held it fast. I leaned in closer, my hot breath fanning across her face. Do I pass, my little assistant? Her brain seemed to short-circuit. She just stared at me, forgetting to react. Just as I was about to move to the next step and kiss her tempting lips, she suddenly snapped out of it, yanked her hand back, and fled, tossing "I'll go make you a smoothie" over her shoulder. I watched her retreating back and laughed. So cute. I was getting more and more addicted to teasing her. We started using pet names for each other. I called her Claire, but she started calling me F. Every time she called me F in that soft, sweet voice, I felt like my bones were melting. Life was like soaking in a vat of honey. The only downside was the constant interruptions from people who didn't know how to take a hint. Marcus showed up almost daily, on schedule, to report on the progress of various games. Boss, the AI project in North America, has a working data model. Google and Microsoft both want to acquire it. The offers are substantial. Not for sale, I said, focusing on peeling an apple for Claire. Tell them our goal is to conquer the stars, not to squabble over pocket change. Claire, listening nearby, had stars in her own eyes. Wow, conquer the stars. F, your game is so romantic. I fed her a slice of apple and smiled. Marcus watched us, his face impassive, but his mouth twitched. He continued his report. Boss, Sterling Industries is on the verge of collapse. Victoria Sterling has mortgaged all her personal assets, but it's not enough to cover the deficit. She came by the corporate headquarters again today, trying to see you. Let her wait, I said without looking up. But she's been standing downstairs for 3 hours. It's raining. My hand paused. I glanced out the window. It was raining, a cold, dreary autumn rain. I suddenly remembered a long time ago when our engagement was still on, she had stood in the rain for hours just to apologize for some misunderstanding. She was proud but stubborn. F, what's wrong? Claire asked softly, noticing my silence. Nothing, I said, returning to the apple. Just someone unimportant. Oh, Claire said, looking down. It's raining so hard outside. That lady, standing all alone. She must be so cold. I looked at her kind profile and sighed internally. My little angel, always so soft-hearted. Marcus, I said into the phone, send someone down with an umbrella, and tell her if she wants to see me, she can attend the Starbright Business Gala next week. I'll be there. Yes, boss. After hanging up, I handed the peeled apple to Claire. Here. She took it but didn't eat. Instead, she looked up at me, her expression serious. F, do you know that lady? I do, I admitted. She's my ex-fiancée. Claire's expression dimmed for a moment, but quickly returned to normal. She took a bite of the apple and mumbled, Oh, so, is she here to get back together with you? Probably. And, will you? She asked very carefully, as if testing the waters. Seeing her nervous expression, I decided to tease her. If she begs, I might consider it. Her face immediately fell. The apple in her mouth suddenly seemed to lose its sweetness. She looked down and went quiet, just nibbling on the apple like a sad little squirrel. I found it both hilarious and heart-wrenching. I leaned over and kissed her pouting cheek. Silly girl, I am Kuden. I tilted her chin up, forcing her to look at me, and said, word by word, my heart is already occupied by a clumsy little rabbit. There's no room for anyone else. Mist instantly formed in her eyes. Really? Really? She tossed the apple core aside and threw herself into my arms, hugging me tightly. You're so good to me. I held her soft, warm body, feeling her breath on my neck, and felt a profound sense of contentment. As for Victoria Sterling, waiting in the rain, let her wait a little longer. If she doesn't taste the bitterness of despair, how will she ever understand what a treasure she threw away? The show was just getting to the good part. The Starbright Business Gala was the city's most exclusive business event of the year. Only the rich and powerful could get an invitation. Victoria Sterling paid a steep price for her ticket. When she walked into the glittering ballroom in a custom-made silver evening gown, she immediately captured everyone's attention. She was still the high and mighty Ice Queen, cold, beautiful, untouchable, but only she knew how nervous she really was. She scanned the crowd like a predator searching for prey, looking for the mysterious Mr. Vance. She didn't know what he looked like or how old he was, only that his last name was Vance, and he would be here tonight. This was her last chance. On the other side of the ballroom, I was sipping champagne, bored out of my mind. I'd been to countless events like this in my past life. I was sick of them. If it wasn't for the drama I was anticipating, I'd rather be at home watching cartoons with Claire. I'm a little nervous. Claire was by my side, wearing a white lace dress I'd picked for her. Her long hair was swept up, revealing the graceful line of her neck. She was like a lily, pure and untouched, standing out in this world of schmoozing and superficiality. The moment she walked in, she had completely outshone Victoria Sterling. Nervous about what? I said, taking her cool hand in mine. Just pretend this is our living room, and all these people are just background characters here to entertain you. My analogy made her laugh, and some of her tension eased. You always have such strange ways of putting things. Because that's how I see it, I whispered in her ear. In my eyes, all of them put together aren't as important as a single strand of your hair. Her face turned pink again. Just then, the ballroom lights dimmed, and the host walked onto the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Welcome to the annual Starbright Business Gala. Tonight, we are incredibly honored to have a very special guest with us. He is. The host drew out the words, milking the suspense. Victoria's heart was in her throat. All eyes were on the stage entrance. He is the legendary founder of Phantom Capital, Mr. Vance. A spotlight shot out and landed directly on me. I stood there, a lazy smile on my face, and raised my glass to the crowd. In that instant, the entire ballroom fell dead silent. Everyone was stunned, especially Victoria Sterling. She stood frozen, the blood draining from her face, her pupils dilated in shock. She stared at me as if she were seeing a ghost. Her mind went completely blank, the only sound the frantic pounding of her own heart. Ethan Vance, the founder of Phantom Capital. Was Ethan, the man she had dumped, the man she had despised, the man she had written off as a worthless waste of space. How was this possible? This had to be a dream. I ignored her shattered expression, took the hand of the equally shocked Claire beside me, and walked calmly toward the stage. Hello, everyone, I said into the microphone, my voice echoing through the hall. I'm Ethan Vance. I'm here tonight mainly to announce one thing. I turned and looked at Claire, my gaze softening. This woman, Ms. Claire Summers, is my girlfriend. From this day forward, anyone who dares to touch a single hair on her head will be making an enemy of me, and an enemy of Phantom Capital. My words were a bombshell, exploding in the silent room. The crowd erupted in a wave of gasps and whispers. And Claire? She was completely dumbfounded. She stared at me, then at the shocked, envious, and jealous faces in the audience, feeling like she was trapped in some bizarre dream. Was the CEO of Phantom Capital. The man she thought was just playing games with her every day was actually a legendary titan of industry. The information was too much. Her brain shut down. And it wasn't over. While the entire hall was still reeling, the main doors of the ballroom were suddenly pushed open, A group of bodyguards in black suits escorted a distinguished-looking middle-aged couple into the room. Claire, my daughter. The woman, impeccably dressed, saw Claire on the stage and immediately burst into tears, running towards her. Claire looked at the face that was both familiar and strange, and a torrent of fragmented memories flooded her mind. Mom! She clutched her head, her face contorting in pain. I immediately steadied her, pulling her into my arms. The grand finale had officially begun. Claire's parents were the heads of the Summers family, one of the most powerful families on the East Coast. They had been going crazy looking for their missing daughter and never expected to find her here. Mrs. Summers clung to her daughter, sobbing uncontrollably. Mr. Summers, however, looked at me with suspicion. Who are you, and why is my daughter with you? His tone was sharp, filled with the condescension of a man used to being in charge. Before I could answer, someone from the crowd spoke up. Mr. Summers, you don't know? This is Mr. Vance, the man behind Phantom Capital. Mr. Summers's expression shifted. His gaze on me became heavier, laced with caution and respect. Phantom Capital, the behemoth that had risen in just a year to disrupt the global market. The identity of its owner was the biggest mystery in the business world, and it was this absurdly young man standing before him. Mr. Vance, a pleasure, Mr. Summers said, his hostility vanishing, replaced by a polite, businesslike smile. My daughter lost her memory, and we are deeply grateful for your care. Think nothing of it, I said coolly. It's my duty to take care of my own girlfriend. I deliberately emphasized the words my own girlfriend. Mr. Summers's smile faltered. At that moment, Victoria Sterling finally snapped out of her stupor. She pushed through the crowd and stumbled to the front of the stage, looking up at me with shattered, disbelieving eyes. Ethan, it's really you. Her voice was trembling. I looked down at her, my expression as flat and emotionless as if I were looking at a stranger. Ms. Sterling, do I know you? Those 3 words, Ms. Sterling, plunged her into an icy abyss. Her face went as white as a sheet. We were. She tried to speak, but her throat felt like it was clogged with concrete. Where were they now? He was the ex-fiancé she had callously thrown away. She was the failure, begging for his charity. The irony was crushing. If you're here to talk about a partnership with Sterling Industries, I said, not bothering to waste any more time on her, speak to my subordinates. I'm busy tonight. Then I turned away from her completely, my attention focused on the woman in my arms. Claire, don't be scared, I murmured, gently stroking her back. I'm here. Claire's face was pale from the rush of returning memories, but she managed a weak smile and clutched my shirt tighter. This public display of favoritism, this blatant dismissal of her for another woman, was like a razor-sharp knife twisting in Victoria's heart. She saw the tenderness in my eyes, a tenderness she had never once received, now being lavished on someone else. An overwhelming wave of regret and jealousy consumed her. Why? Why did it turn out like this? If she hadn't broken the engagement, if she had just tried to understand him a little better, would she be the one standing by his side now, basking in his affection? But there were no ifs. The people around them watched the scene unfold with a mixture of pity, glee, and morbid fascination. The once untouchable CEO of Sterling Industries was now a clown, standing at the foot of the stage, looking up at the man she once scorned. The public humiliation was spectacular, and I didn't even have the interest to spare her another glance. My entire world was the girl in my arms. Mr. and Mrs. Summers, I said, addressing Claire's parents. Claire isn't well. I'm taking her home to rest. We can talk tomorrow. Without waiting for a reply, I scooped Claire up in my arms and, with Marcus and a team of bodyguards clearing a path, strode out of the ballroom, leaving the chaos behind. I never looked at Victoria Sterling again. I knew that this utter indifference would hurt her more than any insult, and that was exactly what I wanted. Back at the penthouse, Claire was still a wreck. The returning memories, combined with the revelation of my true identity, had sent her mind into a tailspin. She locked herself in her room and wouldn't see me. I didn't push. I knew she needed time to process everything on her own. I sat on the living room sofa and poured myself a glass of the craft beer I'd brewed. It was a good batch, but I was in no mood to drink. For the first time, I felt a flicker of anxiety. I was afraid she would leave me because I had deceived her. I was afraid that once she became Claire Summers, the heiress again, she wouldn't need a landlord anymore. This feeling of not being in control was unsettling. About an hour later, her bedroom door opened. She was still in a white dress, barefoot, and she walked slowly over to me. Her eyes were red and puffy. She had been crying. "F," she said, her voice hoarse. My heart leaped into my throat. "I figured it out," she said. I stayed silent, just watching her, waiting for her verdict. "You're a liar." She looked me straight in the eye, her words sharp. My heart sank. "You lied to me about being just a regular guy. You lied about being a lazy landlord. You lied and said we were just playing games." Tears started to stream down her face again. But her tone shifted, and she suddenly threw herself into my arms, wrapping her arms tightly around my waist. "But I realized that even if you're a liar, I still love you. I didn't fall for the CEO of Phantom Capital or the savior of the Summers family. I fell for the guy who cooked for me, who taught me how to fry an egg, who clumsily tried to comfort me, who held me and told me I was his one and only silly girl. I fell for Ethan." She buried her face in my chest, her voice muffled. "So, Ethan, you big liar, will you still have me, now that I'm a troublesome girl who remembers everything?" I was stunned. A massive explosion of joy went off in my chest. I hugged her back with all my strength, wanting to merge her into my very bones. "Yes, of course I'll have you," I said, my voice thick with emotion, my own eyes burning. "This life, the next life, and a life after that. Don't you even think about running away." I cupped her face in my hands and kissed her. This kiss was nothing like our previous gentle explorations. It was possessive, demanding, a conquest. I parted her lips and plundered every sweet inch of her mouth. She clumsily kissed me back, her hands gripping my shirt. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathless. Her face was flushed, her eyes dazed, and her lips were slightly swollen from my kiss, looking utterly irresistible. "Claire," I whispered, my forehead resting against hers, my voice deep and raw. "I love you." She smiled through her tears. "I love you too, Eth." In that moment, I felt like I owned the world. What was a business empire? What was global wealth compared to the sniffling, beautiful girl in my arms? The next day, Mr. Summers paid a visit. His attitude towards me was completely different. He was respectful, humble, even a little fawning. He was here for two reasons. One, to thank me for saving his daughter, and two, to talk business. The Summers family was in a bit of a financial bind and needed a significant capital injection, and I was the biggest lifeline they could possibly find. I didn't agree, but I didn't refuse either. I simply gave the choice to Claire. "Claire, what do you think?" Claire looked at her father's hopeful face, then back at me, and shook her head. "F, it's your company, your money. You should decide. I don't want to use our relationship to pressure you in business." I smiled. My angel, always so kind, so clear-headed. I pinched her cheek, then turned to her father. "Mr. Summers, for Claire's sake, I'll agree to the partnership this time. But I have one condition." "Anything, Mr. Vance." "Mr. Summers said, his spirits soaring. "Your precious nephew, Trevor. I want him to pay for what he did." My voice turned to ice. "I never want to see or hear from him again." Mr. Summers paled, but nodded vigorously. "Understood. Rest assured, Mr. Vance, I will give you a satisfactory resolution." A monster who would try to kill his own cousin for an inheritance? I wasn't about to let him get off easy. I wanted his life to be a living hell. Mr. Summers was efficient. Less than 3 days later, Trevor was shipped off to a certain diamond mine in Africa. Not as a manager, as a miner. I heard that on his first day. He tried to escape and had his leg broken. An endless future of hard labor and despair awaited him. I was very satisfied with that outcome. As for Sterling Industries, the day after I revealed my identity, its stock price crashed. When you're down, everyone kicks you. All the rivals Victoria had made over the years came out of the woodwork to finish her off. Within a week, Sterling Industries declared bankruptcy. Victoria Sterling went from a high-flying Ice Queen CEO to a debt-ridden, ordinary person. She tried to see me a few times. The first time, she still clung to her ridiculous pride, saying that if I helped her, she would consider getting back together with me. I had Marcus throw her out. The second time, She swallowed her pride and waited outside my office building for a day and a night, begging to see me. I had Marcus tell her that I had a girlfriend and that she should stop harassing us. The third time, she knelt in front of my car. It was raining that day. She was soaked to the bone. Her makeup was ruined, and she looked like a pathetic stray. She cried and begged me, saying she knew she was wrong, pleading for another chance. I sat in the car, rolled down the window, and looked at her coldly. "Victoria, do you even know what you did wrong?" She froze. "Your mistake was that you never once tried to get to know me. You were in love with the status of being the Vance family heir. You despised a lazy, worthless version of me that you invented in your own head. The only person you've ever loved is yourself. The way you threw me away back then is exactly what you deserve now. My girlfriend is waiting for me at home for dinner." I rolled up the window and told the driver, "Go." The car moved slowly past her, the tires splashing muddy water all over her expensive suit. In the rearview mirror, I saw her collapse onto the pavement, sobbing uncontrollably. It was a beautiful sight. When I got home, Claire had a full dinner waiting for me. "You're back," she said, smiling as she got my slippers and took my coat. "Go wash up. We can eat." Looking at her gentle, smiling face, all the lingering darkness in my heart vanished. I walked over and hugged her from behind. "Claire, marry me." Her body went still. Then she slowly turned around, her eyes wide with surprise. "Now." "Yes, now." I pulled a velvet box from my pocket and opened it. Inside was a massive pink diamond ring. "This was the first perfect diamond to come out of that mine from our game," I said, looking into her eyes. "Ms. Claire Summers, will you marry this big liar and be the lady of my house?" She covered her mouth, tears falling like pearls. She didn't speak, just held out her left hand. I smiled and slipped the ring on her finger. Then I leaned down and kissed my bride. Outside the window, the dozen stunt planes I bought were painting a giant heart in the night sky with brilliant fireworks. In the center of the heart were two letters, Ichi. The entire city witnessed the grand proposal. The next day, the CEO proposes with skyscraper fireworks heart. Hashtag exploded online. Countless girls lamented, envious of the impossibly spoiled Ms. Summers. And me? I was holding my brand new wife, lounging in bed, enjoying our lazy, chilling newlywed life. "Honey, what do you want to eat today?" "You?" "Okay." Married life was peaceful and sweet. I was still the same lazy bum who loved to do nothing. Except now, the place I did nothing was on my wife's lap. I completely washed my hands of all company affairs. Marcus and the team would occasionally fly in, practically in tears, begging me to come back and take charge. I would usually listen to their reports while enjoying being hand-fed by my wife. "Boss, the energy deal in Europe is about to start a war between several countries. You have to give us some direction." I opened my mouth as Claire fed me a grape. "I'm sweet. Honey, can I have another?" "Marcus." "Boss, our new social media app just passed 2 billion users. The valuation is over $1 trillion. Do we go public or—" I yawned. "I am sleepy. Honey, let's take a nap." "Marcus." In the end, they would always leave, heartbroken, to continue slaving away for their layabout boss. And I would cuddle my soft, sweet-smelling wife and sleep for hours. Claire didn't go back to being the heiress of the Summers family either. She left the family business to her father and happily continued her role as my exclusive personal assistant. Her greatest joy was finding new ways to fatten me up. Occasionally, we would fight over trivial things, like whether to have brisket or sweet and sour pork for dinner. The fights usually ended with me pinning her down on the sofa. She would giggle and beg for mercy, and I would tickle her until she was breathless and offered up a sweet kiss as a truce. The Summers elders were initially a bit wary of the liar who had stolen their precious daughter. But after I casually helped them solve a few multi-billion-dollar business crises and offhandedly gifted them a few private islands as a dowry, they started looking at me like I was their own son. Mr. Summers even started calling me daily, urging us to produce an heir. To that, I could only say, we're working on it. As for Victoria Sterling, I heard later that after selling all her assets to pay off her debts, she disappeared. Someone said they saw her in a small southern town, running a little flower shop. living a quiet life. Perhaps that was the best ending for her, letting go of her obsessions and her pride, returning to a normal life. But none of that had anything to do with me anymore. My life was completely filled by a girl named Claire Summers. This afternoon, the sun was perfect. I was lying on a chaise on the balcony, my head in Claire's lap, listening to her read to me. She was reading a book of fairy tales. Her voice was soft and sweet, like cotton candy. Listening to her, I drifted off to sleep. In my dream, I was back in my previous life. I was still that corporate drone struggling in a big city, squeezing onto the subway every day, living on takeout, pulling all-nighters for KPIs. Life was a grayscale misery. Suddenly, a beam of light cut through the darkness. I saw Claire in a white dress, reaching her hand out to me. She smiled and said, don't be scared. I'm here to take you home." I woke with a start, my eyes flying open to meet Claire's, which were filled with concern. "Did you have a nightmare?" she asked, stroking my cheek. I looked at her and then I smiled. I sat up and pulled her into a tight hug. "It wasn't a nightmare. It was a dream come true. Thank you, my love. You're the one who turned my boring, lazy life into the most beautiful fairy tale." End.